Welcome to the Fibromyalgia podcast. I'm Tami Stackelhouse, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. If you're listening to this in January and you're feeling tired or behind, or the year already hasn't gone the way you hoped, I want to say this clearly. Nothing has gone wrong. This time of year can be hard with fibromyalgia. The holidays take a lot out of us, and there's this quiet pressure in the air that says, okay, now get it together. And it can be so easy to turn that into self-judgment. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stackelhouse, and this is episode 177. Have you ever found yourself thinking, I just need a fresh start, and then immediately felt overwhelmed, discouraged, or behind before you even really began? Or maybe you've tried to make changes before and your body just didn't cooperate the way the plan expected it to. If that sounds familiar, you are most definitely not alone. Today, I'm talking about what a fibro-friendly fresh start actually looks like, whether this is your first attempt at change or your 101st. You'll learn why discipline-based plans don't work for fibro bodies, why small steps matter more than motivation, why knowing how to restart is more important than staying perfectly consistent, and how to create change in a way that fits your energy, your personality, and your real life. If fresh starts have always felt like a fresh opportunity to fail, this episode will help you understand why and show you a kinder, more sustainable way forward. So today's episode is not about resetting your life. It's not about fixing everything, and it is definitely not about pushing harder. It's about continuing gently. A few episodes ago, we talked about starting small, about how real change with fibromyalgia does not come from big effort, but from safe, doable steps your body can actually tolerate. And in our last episode, I had a beautiful conversation with Dr. Robin Pfaff about having a compassionate new year, about softening expectations and meeting yourself where you actually are. Today builds on both of those conversations and asks what a fresh start really looks like when your body doesn't cooperate the way you hoped it would. A fibro-friendly fresh start isn't loud, it's not dramatic, and it doesn't require a new burst of motivation you don't have. Instead, it's a gentle recalibration, a small reorientation based on today's energy, not who you wish you were, or who you used to be, or who you think you should be by now. If you've been feeling pressure to catch up or wondering why fresh starts have never quite worked for you, you are in the right place. Let's talk about what it actually means to start fresh in a way that's kind to your body, your nervous system, and your real life. Let's start by looking at why fresh starts, especially the way we're usually taught, don't work very well with fibromyalgia. Most fresh start advice is built on a few assumptions. Now, you don't usually hear these stated out loud, but you can feel them. You can feel them in your body when you try to follow the plan. The first assumption is consistent energy. That if you decide what you're going to do, your body will cooperate tomorrow the way that it did today. The second assumption is predictable capacity, that you can plan your week, your workouts, your meals, your productivity, and reasonably expect your body to follow through on the plan. The third assumption is that willpower is the solution, that if something isn't working, the answer is to be more disciplined, to be more consistent, or just more determined. And that model, that works sometimes for people who have bodies who are relatively stable and predictable, but fibromyalgia is more complicated than that. I think the perfect example that sums up these assumptions that you will instantly recognize is just do it. With fibromyalgia, energy fluctuates. It isn't something you can necessarily count on. Your capacity can change overnight. You can go to bed expecting tomorrow to be a good day, only to wake up in a body that feels like it got hit by a truck while you were sleeping. And when that happens, it's not just frustrating, it's confusing, especially if you're doing all the right things. The plan made sense, you were committed, and when your body couldn't cooperate, it can make you question yourself, your judgment, your effort, even your motivation. Have you found yourself thinking, oh, maybe I didn't really want that? That is the part most advice doesn't account for. The fibro factor. And on top of that, of course, fibromyalgia comes with a highly sensitive nervous system. So when you add pressure, when you tell yourself you have to stick to the plan, or that falling off means you failed, or that you just need to push through, just do it, right? Well, your nervous system does not interpret that as motivation. It interprets that as a threat. This is something we've talked about recently in other episodes, and you'll find links to the episodes and resources I'm talking about in today's show notes at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/177. Now, in our last episode, Dr. Robin Pfaff explained this clearly when she said that the pressure to be a new you in the new year actually activates the threat system in our nervous systems, and even called New Year's resolutions damaging for people with chronic illness. That kind of pressure activates the stress response, not a healing one. Then 2 episodes ago, in episode 175, Dr. Andrew Holman helped us understand this from another angle by talking about heart rate variability, or HRV. HRV gives us a window into what the nervous system is doing. You can't see your nervous system, but you can measure and see your HRV. When nervous system stress is high, the body is in survival mode, and even the best treatments are less likely to work the way that we hope they will. And when the nervous system feels threatened, survival mode is exactly where it goes. That's when we see increased pain, more fatigue, brain fog, poor sleep, and flares that feel so discouraging. So the very approach that we're told to use to help us change actually makes fibro symptoms worse. And January tends to magnify this. January is already a tough month for so many of us, right? We are often completely exhausted after the holidays. And culturally, January is full of messages that say, start over, fix yourself, be better this time. And that combination of low capacity plus high pressure is a recipe for burnout, not healing. So if fresh starts have never worked for you before, it is not because you didn't try hard enough. It's not because you lack discipline or willpower. And it's not because there's something wrong with you. So if you've been carrying a quiet guilt or shame about why things haven't worked before, this is why. The model you were taught was wrong for your body. Fibromyalgia does not respond to force. You can't push your way into healing. Healing takes rest and space. That's why we have to rethink what a fresh start actually means and build one that works with your nervous system instead of against it. So, if pushing harder doesn't work and discipline isn't the answer, what does a fibro-friendly fresh start actually look like? Well, the first thing to know is this: it is not a reset. It is not about wiping the slate clean or starting over from scratch. And it's not about fixing everything, especially all at once. And it's definitely not about becoming a new you in the new year. A fibro-friendly fresh start is simply about taking the next step, maybe in a slightly different direction. It starts exactly where you are, with the body you're living in right now, today, with the energy you have today and the capacity that you have today. Instead of asking, what should I be doing? It asks a very different set of questions. What does my body actually want? What feels safe enough to try? Where can I create a little more space? Because with fibromyalgia, space comes before progress. That's why big dramatic changes rarely work, and why small steps matter so much more than motivation. Not because it's impressive, even impressively small, but because they're small enough to feel doable. This is where much of our fresh start culture usually gets it wrong, right? It assumes change happens all at once. It's that turning point. It assumes fresh motivation, a fresh plan, a fresh batch of discipline. But with fibromyalgia, sustainable change actually happens incrementally. If you want a deeper breakdown of why incremental change is so much more effective for fibromyalgia, check out episode 174 on starting small. What I want to focus on here is what happens when things don't go as planned, because fibromyalgia pretty much guarantees that it won't. Staying perfectly on plan isn't near as important as what you do next when your body flares, your energy drops, or life interrupts your best intentions. With fibromyalgia, knowing how to restart gently matters far more than staying perfectly consistent. I also want to name one more really important thing here. A fibro-friendly fresh start isn't just about changing your actions or your thoughts or your habits. Sometimes it's also about giving your body time to heal. We don't talk about this enough. Just like you can't make a broken bone heal faster, you can't make a fibro body heal faster. Not everything can be solved with mindset work or reframed or powered through or fixed by regulating your nervous system. Sometimes there are real physical things that need time and space to heal, time that simply cannot be rushed or made faster. I was reminded of this so clearly by one of my recent graduates, Sabina from Germany. She said something that really struck me as both funny, but also extremely true. She said, I realized I can't meditate my way out of my hip pain. And this was funny because her hip needed surgery. And then, just as importantly, her body needed time to heal after surgery, and her fibro body needed time to recover after all of that. No amount of discipline could rush that process. No amount of positive thinking could override biology, and no amount of nervous system work could replace the physical repair that her hip needed. Fibromyalgia is often like that. There are things genuinely going wrong in your body, things that need rest, that need repair, things that need patience and time. A fibro-friendly fresh start is not about forcing change before your body is ready. It's about creating an environment, both inside yourself and outside your body, where healing can occur, and then giving your body time and space to actually do that healing. Which brings us to the next question. If fresh starts are small, gentle, and personal, where do you actually begin? This is usually the moment where people want a list. You know the kind. Drink more water, move your body, eat better, meditate, declutter your house, a 3-step process to a new you, right? But starting there is exactly what gets people overwhelmed and often triggers that threat response that we talked about earlier. So before you decide what to do, start by checking in with questions like, who am I really? What does my body actually want today? What feels safe enough to try? What kind of energy do I actually have right now? The goal here is to ground your next step in your current reality, not in an idealized version of yourself. Once you have answers to those questions, then you can look at your world and choose a small step that actually matches the answer. For me, that started with paying attention to where I spent the most time and how my body felt while I was there. I didn't actually start by fixing everything. I started by noticing where my eyes landed and how my body felt. For me, that meant taking a minute, sitting in my comfy chair, and looking around. What was directly in front of me? What did I see when I opened my eyes? How did my nervous system feel looking at whatever that was? What did my brain have to process all day long? And instead of trying to clean or declutter everything, I focused on that tiny piece right in front of me. Not the whole room, not the whole house, just what was right in front of me. Honestly, I let what was behind me stay a mess. Not forever, not always, but just for a while. Because fibromyalgia doesn't need you to fix everything. It just, again, needs space. It needs you to simplify, to reduce the load, and free up space and energy for something else, for healing. And this is where a lot of us live by quiet rules that we don't even realize. Rules like, I can't rest unless my house is clean, or I'll stop after I get this done, or one more thing, or I'll relax once things are caught up. Other people can do more, so I should be able to do. Or the one I used to tell myself all the time, I'll start that when I feel better. Until one day it hit me like a bolt of lightning. Waiting to work on my health until I feel better is like waiting to exercise until I'm in shape. It doesn't work that way. And that's exactly why we start small. We want to make it doable in the body you have today. We can start working on our health while we're still sick. So instead of feeling like you need to clean the whole house, I want to invite you to try this. Go sit or stand or lie down in the place where you spend most of your time. Notice where your eyes land and ask yourself, does what I'm looking at make me feel more stressed or more calm? Then ask one more question. What is one small thing that I could change, clear away, move, organize, just make prettier? That's it. Just one thing. Letting something be messy for now is not failure, it's strategy, especially when we do it as a conscious choice. A fibro-friendly fresh start often begins with just that one choice to reduce stress or to make space, and it's not even a choice to improve yourself. So yes, I just said improving yourself starts by making choices about other things, not choices about improving yourself. Once you've taken that first small step, the next thing that really matters is this. What happens when things don't go as planned? Because here's the truth that you know as well as I do. Fibromyalgia will interrupt your plans. Absolutely. So a fibro-friendly fresh start has to take that into account. And it assumes that restarting is part of the plan, not what happens when the plan goes wrong. It's part of the plan. One of my earliest aha moments came from how I handled Friday nights and what I told myself afterwards. This is where so many people get stuck. They fall off, miss a few days, have a flare, and instead of restarting gently, they turn that moment into a verdict about themselves or even about their character. I blew it. I might as well quit. I'm just a hot mess. Or my favorite, the one I used to say all the time, I'll start again on Monday. My sister Debbie and I used to joke that we were going to co-write a book titled Starting Monday, because no matter when things went sideways, even if it was Tuesday, we always told ourselves we'd be better starting Monday. And before my coach helped me see this differently, that is exactly how I treated my fibro plan too. My default response was always, I'll get back on plan starting Monday. Friday night date night would come, which generally meant movie, popcorn, soda, maybe pizza, and my plan would completely fall apart. Instead of restarting right then, or even Saturday morning, I'd wait and starting Monday, which meant I didn't just lose Friday night, I lost the whole weekend. What finally helped wasn't finding a more perfect starting point, like a better Monday or even January. I see you, January. I know what you're trying to do. What actually helped me was learning how to restart kindly right then. I didn't realize it, but when I said I would try again starting Monday, I was essentially planning for a moment when I believed I could start over perfectly. Instead, I learned to think, what's the kindest next step I can take right now from here? Not tomorrow, not Monday, not after I somehow become a perfect version of myself, just what's next from here? Sometimes that meant drinking some water when I got home from the movies. Sometimes it meant adding protein or meant getting a good night's sleep and then starting again in the morning, because sometimes restarting right now is not the right choice, right? Get a good night's sleep, start fresh in the morning. That is restarting. And the more you practice restarting without shame, the safer your nervous system will feel. Because instead of interpreting that disruption as danger or failure, your body learns something new. Oh, we're okay. We know what to do with this. We know how to restart. A fibro-friendly fresh start doesn't ask, can you stay on track forever? It asks, can you gently correct your trajectory when things drift off? That skill, it matters far more than consistency ever will, and may even be the most important skill you learn in your fibro life. Now, before we go any further, I do want to gently clear something up. A fibro-friendly fresh start does not require calm. It doesn't require a peaceful house. It doesn't need a quiet mind or a perfectly regulated nervous system. You don't need everything figured out. What you need is space. Space to pause, to rest, to respond, to heal. That calm, that may come later, but space has to come first. And also, rest cannot become a reward. When rest becomes a reward for getting things done, right? I'll rest when I finish. People with fibromyalgia rarely ever get it because there's always something still to do. A fibro-friendly fresh start works differently. Instead of asking what needs to be done before I can rest, it asks what would give me a little more breathing room right now. And it also asks, would rest first help me? If your space is messy, if your body is tired, if your mind feels overloaded, you are not doing anything wrong by resting first. If anything, you're missing out by not resting first. Rest is not the prize at the end of the day. It's the support that makes everything else possible. Start with space and rest. Here's another important piece. A fibro-friendly fresh start is not going to look the same for everyone. One of the reasons people fail with this is because we're often trying to follow someone else's version of what healthy or doing better is supposed to look like. I try to be super careful about that here in the podcast, but it's totally natural for me to say, hey, this worked for me. You should try it too. In fact, I've already done that at least once in this one episode, right? The key is for you to know yourself well enough to know what things fit you and what things to ignore. We might see someone else getting up early or being super consistent, following a strict plan, doing all the things, checking the boxes. And we might think, well, if that worked for them, it should work for me. But as I said, those things are really personal. Some people are going to genuinely feel better with structure, while others feel imprisoned by it. Others will feel better with flexibility, right? Some are energized by novelty. Others need things to be safe and predictable. None of these things are better or worse. They're just different personalities and different nervous systems responding to the world in different ways. And when you try to force yourself into someone else's version of a fresh start, it can feel exhausting or discouraging or, at worst, even impossible. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because the approach just simply doesn't fit you. This is one of the reasons why I created the Fibromyalgia Wellness Style Quiz, to help people understand how they're wired, to understand their natural strengths and challenges, and the kinds of support that are going to be the most helpful for them so they know what to take and what to throw away from the examples that they see. When your fresh start actually fits who you are, your personality, your life, everything gets easier. So if you have ever thought, why does this seem easier for everybody else? Or why do I always struggle with this part? This is often why. It's not a willpower issue. It's not a discipline issue. It's simply an issue of having the wrong fit. Now, if you are curious to learn more about how you're wired or what your fibromyalgia wellness style is, you can take the free quiz at fibroquiz.com. I'll also have that link with everything else we've talked about today in today's show notes at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/177. Now, a fibro-friendly fresh start is not about becoming someone else. In fact, it's actually about becoming even more who you really are. It's about working with yourself, your body, your energy, your personality, one small step at a time. Which brings me to one final piece. How do you think about the future when fibromyalgia makes long timelines feel impossible? For many of us, thinking too far ahead feels really, really overwhelming. When I first started working with my health coach back in 2009, she asked me, like many coaches will do in their first session, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I laughed hard. You may even be laughing as you hear this, because if you have fibromyalgia, you know where this is going. I said, 5 years? I don't even know where I'm going to be in 5 days, much less 5 years. And that unpredictability is part of fibromyalgia. And just one reason working with someone like a certified fibromyalgia coach can make such a difference, because we understand. But once I explained all that to my coach, we landed on a much simpler idea that did work for me. This was the idea. Every day I stick to my plan, I feel a little bit better the next day. Every day I stick to my plan, I feel a little bit better the next day. That's it. Now, notice that was not a lot better. That wasn't cured, just a little bit better. Taking a step in the right direction, changing that trajectory. And the thought was this: if I could string together enough of those little bit better days, I would be a whole lot better over time. And, all these years later, more than 10 years later, almost 20 years later, going on, I can say that that idea was true. A little bit better every day adds up to a lot better over time. And that is a fibro-friendly fresh start. It doesn't ask you to know where you'll be months or years from now. It just asks you to move in a direction that moves you closer to the life you want to live. And that is enough. So, as we close today, I want to bring this all back to something super simple. A fibro-friendly fresh start doesn't have to happen on January 1st or starting Monday, or after you get it all together, or even after you feel better. You can and should begin again and again and again anytime. And when you do, you don't need to overhaul your whole life. Just choose one small, kind step forward in the direction that you want your life to go. That's it. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to share a message that I received from Karen. She wrote to me and said, I just want to thank you for your podcast and tell you how incredibly helpful you are to me. Bless you for enabling me to have my best life regardless of my fibromyalgia. Your encouragement over the last 3 years has been such a game changer for me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, I want to point out that Karen is someone that I have never actually talked to personally. So when she says that my encouragement has been a game changer, she literally means listening to the podcast here. When I asked her what specifically had been the most helpful, she said, your attitude. You are so encouraging, and I truly believe I can overcome this with the right tools and support. I love this so much. And thank you, thank you, thank you, Karen. You see, fibromyalgia doesn't get better through pressure, right? You can't force healing, and it doesn't get better through perfection, and it doesn't get better by accident. Fibromyalgia improves through encouragement, support, and learning how to work with your body. And if listening to this podcast has helped you believe even a little bit that change is possible for you too, then that is exactly why I am here, to encourage that hope that feeling better really is possible for all of us. Now, over the next few episodes, we are going to build on this together. Next up, you're going to hear stories from our graduates, and I want those stories to inspire you, not discourage you. Remember, your path doesn't need to look like theirs. Your timeline doesn't need to match anyone else's. Progress is cumulative, and it counts even when it's quiet or even when it feels like it's going backwards, as you'll hear from one of our graduates. So for now, I want you to take a breath. You're not behind. You're just responding to your real body and your body's real needs. And you don't have to do this all at once. Just keep taking kind, honest steps forward at your own pace, and I'll be right here with you. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stackelhouse.
For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.